There's a lot of people talking about seed oils being toxic and also omega-6s being toxic. Many of them are so-called experts, and I have to tell you, these are people who have not done their homework. Because if they had done their homework, they would understand that it's not the omega-6s that are the problem or the seed oils that are the problem, but the damage done to them by industrial processing as well as frying. The research that these people read is research done all over the world, and they all use damaged oils to do the research, and they don't talk about the damage done to those oils. And then they conclude in that research there's something wrong with the omega-6 or the seed oil, instead of blaming the industry and the frying pan for the damage done to the oils that they use in the research. So the research is done on these damaged oils, and people are not saying blame the industry or blame the frying pan. They're saying blame the oil. It's really important you make that distinction. I came across all the same research. At one point, I had a study that said omega-6 is essential. You have to have it. You can't live without it. It kills you if you don't get enough. And the next study I read said omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. What? And it was that contradiction that drove me crazy, that said, no, there must be something else going on, because you can't have something that is absolutely essential for your health and that then it kills you. Health is the opposite of getting killed. The notion that you should not have omega-6s or seed oils in your diet comes from a guy who was a crackpot from Oregon. He recently died, and even 20 years ago, he was saying if you take enough B vitamins, you don't need essential fatty acids. He was saying essential fatty acids are not essential. But there were about 30,000 studies that came from all around the world establishing that the omega-3 and omega-6 essential fatty acids are both essential. And he insisted, and he got a following. He was extreme, and he made it easy for people because the essential fatty acids, the seed oils that contain them, are the most sensitive of our nutrients. They're damaged by light, oxygen, and heat. They need the most care of any of our nutrients, and we give them the least care. And because we don't give them the care they need is why they're damaged, both by industrial processing and by food preparation. I listened to him, I looked at his work. He's just 100% dead wrong. Why do people lie about seed oils? There's really two reasons why people lie. One is to avoid pain or negative consequences, and the other is to gain advantage without making effort. Because if you want to do something really well, then it takes a lot of effort. So they're basically trying to get away with not doing the work, but getting the benefits. When people hold extreme views, they get attention. And people sometimes do it deliberately to get the attention. They get the attention because they say something outrageous. It's a marketing technique. I don't get the attention they get. If I gave you more bad news than good news, you would probably listen to me more. But I'm not going to do that because I think people deserve better. And then sometimes people lie because they just don't know better. They're not deliberately lying, but they haven't done their homework, so the lie comes from them not having done the homework. If you're unsure that I know what I'm talking about, pick up a copy of my book, Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, and it will give you the information that you're being denied by the people who haven't done their homework and are telling you that seed oils or omega-6s are bad for you and you shouldn't use them. So here's what people are actually talking about when they tell you that you shouldn't use seed oils or omega-6s. They're talking about the damage done by processing by the industry that makes the colorless, odorless, tasteless oils in plastic bottles. And they're talking about the damage done by frying, but they're mistaking the damage done for the oil. The damage goes like this. They take the oil, they treat it with first sodium hydroxide, a very corrosive base, take some things out of the oil. And by the way, they're doing all this for shelf life because they want to have a large market and you need a long shelf life for a large market. So then they treat it with phosphoric acid, a very corrosive acid. Then they use bleaching clays to take out the color molecules that absorb light, and then the oil goes rancid. They got to get rid of the rancidity because it makes the oil smell bad and taste bad. And to do that, they have to heat the oil to frying temperature in a process called deodorization. I used to call it destinkerization. And then they have a colorless, odorless, tasteless oil that has a 3-year shelf life. Then they put it in a plastic bottle and they keep it on the shelf where light hits the oil that can do damage through free radical formation. And they have pesticides in the oil because deodorization only takes out half the pesticides that are in the oil because they're not working with organically grown seeds. That's where the damage done to the oils comes from. Seed oils and omega-6s are essential for health. If you don't get enough, your health deteriorates. If you don't get enough long enough, you die. Your body cannot make them from anything else, so they have to come from outside. If your health is deteriorating because you're not getting enough, but before you die, you bring enough back into your diet, all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed. Now, what are some of the symptoms of deficiency? When I became omega-6 deficient, I had dry eyes, skipped heartbeats, arthritis-like pain in my finger joints, and thin, papery skin. There's evidence that deficiency of omega-6 wrecks the skin and eventually leads to kidney failure. Omega-6s are part of the skin around every one of your body's 60 trillion cells. Now, the people who want to sell you saturated fats because they have a long shelf life and keep well, they will always diss omega-3s and omega-6s. But that will cost you in health because only omega-3 and omega-6, the two that are the hardest to work with, those are the only two that you have to have of any of the fats in order to live and be healthy. So when I talk about the damage done to oils by industry and by food preparation, here's a few numbers. Somewhere between 0.5% and 1% of the oil molecules in the industrial made oils that you buy in plastic bottles, 0.5% to 1% damaged. How many molecules would that be? Because somebody tried to say, well, don't worry about it, it's 99% good. So I did the math and said, okay, well, how many damaged oil molecules would I find in a tablespoon of an oil, 14 grams, 15 milliliters? And in 1 tablespoon that is 1% damaged by the processing, you get 60 quintillion damaged molecules. That's a 6 followed by 19 zeros. That's more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells in 1 tablespoon. And people use 2 to 4 tablespoons a day, so you have to multiply that in, figure out how much damage you're actually eating. If you do that for 30 years, you have to multiply that by 10,000 times, because that's how many days there are in 30 years. You're bringing in day after day after day millions, billions, trillions of damaged molecules. When you overheat oils, you increase inflammation in the body and you increase the risk of cancer. Don't use damaged seed oils and don't use damaged omega-6s. You have to switch from damaged oils to oils that are made with health in mind. Get oils that are made with health in mind, protected from light, oxygen, and heat, from organically grown seeds, in dark glass bottles, in a box, refrigerated in the factory, refrigerated in the store. You refrigerate them at home, and you never use them for frying. You add them to foods after they come off the heat source. If the oil hasn't been damaged by the industry and you haven't damaged it by frying, then oils contain essential nutrients that you absolutely have to live and be healthy. I created a method for making oils with health in mind where we start with organically grown seeds. We don't use the harsh chemicals. We don't heat them to frying temperature. We protect them from light, oxygen, and heat through the entire process. And we put them in dark glass bottles, nitrogen flushed, in a box to cut the light out, and we keep them refrigerated in the factory, in the store. You refrigerate them at home, and you never use them for frying. You add them to foods after they come off the heat source. If you want to learn more, go to udoschoice.com, udoschoice.com.